I'm Graydon Lyons, and we're going to talk a little bit about the past, where they were born and how they were brought up, and how they got together, and some of the farms here in the area. And I believe we're going to start with Eleanor.
We were both born in 1932 in March. Grady was born the 10th. I was born the 23rd. We were born on opposite ends of the town. I was born on Titus Hill with Dr. Norris in attendance at the home. The house is still standing where I was born. Grady was born on the Gulf Links Road with Dr. Norris in attendance. And Grady lived there. I'll let him talk now because how long he lived on that place.
Lived there till I was started the 8th grade. Went to Kittyville School for rural school. And
8 years.
I moved to where I'm living now in 1945. I don't know.
Graydon, I'd like to ask you something. Do you remember the names of any of the teachers you had in the rural
Oh, yeah,
school?
I remember them all. I only had 3.
Okay, you want to give them to us?
My first grade teacher was a lady by Thelma Mooney. She was a divorced lady and from Concord. Her home place was in Concord. Then in my 2nd grade, I had a teacher by the name of Phyllis Banner, and she came from down around Groveland. She married a McFarlane. She just barely passed away this last year. And then from my 3rd grade on, I had Mrs. Keach, Jenny Keach, for teacher all the rest of the way, 6 years. That's the only ones I had. When I was in the 2nd grade, they had the Mohawk school was closed, and they all came to Kittyville, or the factory. They went one way or the other. And before the year was out, when I was in 2nd grade, we had over 50 kids.
In one room.
In one room?
And 2 teachers.
And 2 teachers. This school was right up over the hill, you said?
Yeah, we're up uphill. Well, yeah.
It's made into a house now.
Who lives there now?
Oh.
Russell Rainville owns it and he rents it.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Anything else I can go back to schools?
I lived on Titus Hill, and I always went to the village because we were, well, a little less than a mile from town, I think.
What's the matter?
It's the house that's right by where you go up to the landfill. There was an old rambling barn there and a house. The house is originally, it's still standing. The barn's been torn down. But the house has been remodeled. I don't know who lives there. I think it's where Rachel Close mother lives. I don't know if she still lives there or not. And I lived there until 1943. And in that time, when Grady's folks moved down here, and everybody was moving. Well, they couldn't spend money during the war, and they accumulated money, I guess. I don't know. I guess our folks did.
And
They had got sick of being on back roads and muddy roads, so everybody was trying to get on to get on to hot top, or whatever you want to call the roads.
Yeah.
So we moved to the Mohawk in 1943.
Would that be where the present homestead is now?
Yeah.
1943.
In 1943.
And Grady, you moved
from that house to this place.
What house?
Up where
Albie lives.
That's what I was going to ask you. Where Albie lives. That's where you live?
That's where he was born.
I was born there.
You were born there?
All 3 of his 2 brothers, and Albie and his brother. Tell them about having pneumonia, dear, when they were real little.
Who was the 3rd brother?
He had an older one.
My oldest brother
Died
with pneumonia.
And then Albie and Grady both had it after that. So you can imagine his mother and father's. And no penicillin, you just waited it out, I guess.
Then so your family moved here. So this was your parents' house.
This was my grandfather's place first.
Your grandfather.
He moved here in about 1935, I think, or 36. He bought this place.
This is Jed Lyons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then my father bought it from my grandmother, and he and my grandmother in 1945.
And they moved to the village.
They moved to the village.
Now your
That's as far as I've been. I haven't moved.
That's as far as you've been. But your folks were farmers then, I'm presuming.
Oh, yeah. My father was, well, he was a farmer. He ran both places for 4 or 5 years or more.
But he did a lot of pulping.
But he was a pulp contractor besides. He had, well, trucks that they had back then. They didn't have 18-wheelers. They had, 2-ton, 3 tiers of pulp, and
Haul it to Arrow.
run over the notch with it and dump it in the river out there. And that was the extent of the pulping.
Then we'll go down the river to
Yeah, to
Berlin.
Berlin.
Yeah.
A neat way to go.
2 different dumping places.
And now your grandfather Jed, did he farm before your father?
Well, he worked he worked for the Hales on the Balsam farms, and he lived up. He lived up where when we were first born. My brother and I were first born. He lived across from my brother. About Howard Weber lives now. He lived on that farm just before he moved down here. While I was here.
So how many balsam farms were there?
There was 15.
15.
15 farms that were owned and operated by the Balsams.
Balsams, and they specialized in different things and furnished either pork, mutton, lamb,
Whatever the hotel needed.
milk, or whatever to the hotel.
That was neat. Now, was your farm considered one of the Balsams farms, or was that?
No, this one wasn't.
Wasn't,
This
but
wasn't.
those
This one
were up
wasn't.
there.
But when we were born, that one was Farm 10.
Farm 10.
Where Weber lives is 11.
There aren't buildings on many of them now.
Yeah, a lot of them the buildings are all gone.
So if you drove through up there, you'd know where each farm was, but there's no buildings.
I would know.
You would
Yeah.
know.
Frankie Nash is over there. Was Farm 1? Oh, the back,
No, the farmstead was the big barn over by the garage is, over by
where the fire was.
Where they had the fire, but anyway.
That was farm 1, and it just went from there up.
Yeah, it came down.
Around, really. Came down as far as what, Washburn's status?
Yeah, Ruth Washburn was one of them. And then there was what we always known as Farm 4. It's up in almost to the backside of the golf course.
Backside of the golf course?
That's what it is, actually. And then and 5 was down on where Washburn place is. But 6 and 7 was where Tillson's house is, or 6 was, and then 7 is where Crosses always lived.
Up this road.
Oh, yes,
Up at the right of the schoolhouse. up
And
there.
the place right just beyond the schoolhouse, going up toward the golf course, wasn't one of them. It was belonged to the Hicks family, Otis Hicks, which was, well, and there's probably someone would remember, he was Richard Frizzell's grandfather.
The TV man.
The TV Richard.
Yes, I remember
Frizzell.
Richard.
Yeah,
Put my
Richard.
first TV.
Yeah.
Cobra.
He was Otis Hicks was his grandfather, his mother's son. But the next place up, Farm 8, and where Peanut lives is 9, Albie's is 10, Weber's 11.
But it went way over this other way.
And Farm 12 was right on the corner of the golf course up there, at the top of the hill. There's nothing, it's all grown up with trees now. And 13 was over behind my brother's, up on the Lost Nation Road. But we always, well, the last one that lived, no, he wasn't the last one that lived there, but the one that lived there when we were children was John Haney. And that was the last farm on that road. It used to be 1, 2, 3. Originally settled, there was at least 1, 2, 3, 4 farms on that old back road.
What they call the Lost Nation.
You know what
You
we
go up
call
here
it.
on it's a right-hand turn up here, beyond Watson's, where they have pulped
It's,
now.
Is that sawmill up by Watson's, has that been there a long, long time, or is that something new they did?
That's new. That's
brand new. That's not.
Watson's Mill.
oh, the sawmill?
Yeah.
Graham built that himself
He did.
in 1977.
Yeah. There didn't used to be a sawmill out this way,
Right down here to Kitterville.
right down in Kitterville.
Harold Jackson was the last one that ran it.
Mhm.
Abe Washburn ran it with the water power when I was growing up. All while I was growing up, Abe was
Harold's.
Henrietta's father, and that was there for a long time, ever since I can remember.
That was what you can remember.
But tell them about your father delivering milk to the Balsam machine. Washing those milk cans, your mother and father.
Yeah.
Different than they do today.
Yes, I'm sure that would be interesting.
That was
This
in the
was
30s, wasn't it?
in the late 30s. I can't remember when he didn't
Do it.
When he didn't, I can't remember when he started doing it. And all during the war and right up until he died, he delivered milk at the Balsam's Hotel in the 40-quart cans, you know.
Not pasteurized.
Not pasteurized.
Just plain raw.
Just plain raw.
Raw milk.
They thought that was wonderful milk.
And, oh yeah, the help over there, they couldn't wait long enough to get a glass of that cold milk. But anyway, sometimes he'd buy milk to keep up with the demand. He'd have to buy milk off of other farmers. Because, you know, they take 20 cans a day, 20 sometimes.
But then they'd bring those cans back, and Gray's father and mother would heat water with a wood stove, a hot water heater, an old, from the wood, going through the wood stove, to wash those cans and keep them clean, and be ready for the next day, out in the shed, out in the garage.
Quite a job.
It was a lot of work.
And this was for the Hale family?
This was for the hotel.
Hotel. I can't remember when Hale had it. Captain Dudera
Was the
was the
one
one that
Grady can remember.
that I can remember, and they went from him to
Coleman.
Coleman. That was there.
And then Coleman to Tulsa.
Well,
Oh.
that was a bankruptcy.
Bankrupt.
You went bankrupt. Is that where they get the name Coleman State Park from?
No, that's a different.
That's
That's a
different. Coleman was spelled different.
It was spelled different. Yeah, his was spelled with a K.
One that owned the Balsams.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about Archie and Helen Lyons? Was that a Balsam's farm too? You didn't mention
Yeah,
that one.
that's Farm 8 where I and Helen lived. Well,
Farm 8. Yeah.
Archie and Helen lived where Peanut does when they were farming all the time.
And then they moved over in the other house.
And when Richard and Peanut were married, they lived where Aunt Helen, when they were first married, the first 2, 3
2 or 3 years.
3 years maybe, I don't know, Peanut could tell you about that, but, and then they just switched houses like they do, you know.
Mhm. So Archie was a farmer too then?
Oh yeah, they were, we were all basically
Oh.
farmers,
Mhm.
into this and into that, and
Growing potatoes.
my father was into potatoes some, but the one that was, Eleanor's father was into potatoes, more seed potatoes anyway.
Certified seed he grew. Well,
You
these
get
were
table stock.
table stock or whatever they called it. But Daddy raised, and Grandpa did too, Burton raised certified seed.
Well, your father's potatoes were known statewide practically.
Well, I don't know. They were sold for certified seed if somebody wanted something. They were certified because they were rogued, they used to call it. They would go up and down those rows taking out the diseased plants. And then they were inspected to see if there was any, or if they passed but it could be called certified. I'd say he sold certified seed throughout New Hampshire if somebody wanted, a supposedly better seed, I guess. I don't know. But I'd like to tell about that chickpea.
Yes,
Daddy
but-
made that name up. When I was real little, I can just barely remember him hatching chickens. But I remember Mama saying he came in one night and said he had a name for the farm. Because he had registered cattle, so we had to have a prefix. So the KOW was for the cows, and the CHIC was for the chick, and the PO was for the potatoes. And that's what he went out of chickens very quickly. So it was mainly just cows and potatoes.
When he first started with the chickens, was it chickens he was selling or the eggs?
Both. I
Oh,
remember
both.
taking eggs in the Legion restaurant out back. As a little girl, I remember going with him. But I can remember him hatching in some incubators, little tiny chicks, when I was real little.
Is that what led them eventually to be an Agway dealer, or was that later on?
No, that was a lot later.
Yeah.
Well, that Agway was really my grandmother and grandfather, Burton and Alice, sold grain for Eastern States for years, since I can remember, I guess.
Can't remember when they did
The
it.
grain would come in on the freight train, and they would open the car, and people would order so many bags of grain, and then it would come in once a week?
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks, okay. And she did all the bookkeeping for it and collected and
Now, where did it come into? Down to the railroad
down to the
station?
railroad station.
They went down there and sold it from there?
Yeah, I mean, people would pick it up and then pay them at a later time. But that was Eastern States. Then see, through all these cooperatives, they've combined, and Eastern States became Agway.
I see.
And then I guess that Daddy took over from Grandma and
Yeah,
Grandpa's.
he bought it or
Bought it
whatever,
or did something.
when they were sold out over there.
Yeah,
Now, where did they live, your grandparents?
where Jane and
McKenna?
McKenna
Kevin
lived.
McKinnon.
That
What is
was-
now Ledgewater Farm?
That was, Ledgewater was what my grandfather used for his prefix for his registered cows.
Oh, so they named that.
So it was my grandfather that named that Ledgewater.
I see.
I don't really know where it came from. I mean, I'm assuming there's a ledge up back of the barn there. But that's where they always lived until they sold it. They sold it to Philip Riando, then Philip Riando sold it to McKinnon's. But
Now,
that's why the
Philip
Ledgewater.
Riando, was that the vacuum cleaner mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Mrs. Riando lives
Mm-hmm.
as you come out
In
from
the little
Mohawk
house
now.
near the
Little
country
house.
club.
Yeah, near the country club. So what else you got there? Questions there?
Going to a meeting down to Concord, and Eleanor's was your father's car.
Hudson driving. He wasn't that
Six
slow a
potato
driver.
growers.
Yeah, Wilford Rainville, Eldon, Charlie Jackson from up this way, Harold Marshall, Harry Lang was with us.
Oh, yes.
I don't know who the sixth one was. Must have been just five.
They going down the other side of Franconia Notch while the
That hump was.
plume, you
Yeah,
know,
before they
when
did the
you-
new road.
They pitched over that, and there was a trailer truck crossways the road, and it was in the wintertime. I guess they swallowed the cigar.
I bet they did.
So,
But they were going down to Concord to, what,
To a
for a potato
meeting.
meeting?
Potato meeting.
potato growers meeting, yeah.
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 I didn't realize that Harry Lang grew potatoes.
Oh, yeah.
There's a big
potato-
potato house down
Ain't that potato house still there? Buying it.
Yeah, actually it is. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that's what it was, but it is there.
kind of in the ground.
Halfway in the ground.
Yeah,
That's
why
right.
they built all those potato houses. Yeah. But there was a lot of potatoes grown in Cross County, really, at one time.
Oh, well, of course, everybody knows there's been a tremendous amount of changes made in the farming business since. I can remember when I was a kid, we didn't have electricity. I can remember going to barn on the Lyons and up where my brother lived.
We never did, because we had a Delco plant. So I can't remember not having electricity. But
Yeah.
going to my grandmother's house, we had kerosene lamps, cold bedrooms.
That was, we had electricity before World War II started, just before that, about 40, maybe 39 or 40, somewhere along. We didn't have electricity when I was in the first grade because I can remember the hurricane in 38.
38.
That made a big
That's when I
impression on me.
That's the year I was born. I came in like a hurricane.
I
Oh,
was in the first grade, and I can remember sitting at the kitchen table and the wind was blowing, so I blew the lamp out.
Wow.
So we didn't.
see, where they lived, they didn't have any trees around the house.
No,
It was
there's
sort
no-
of just set in the field up there. Albie's the one that's planted some trees around there. There
Give it
was
a little
never any
windbreak.
trees around those buildings.
No.
Whereas on Tartus Hill, where we lived, we had trees everywhere. We had maples across the road, and we had elms all in the dooryard. And I remember waking up the next morning and there was trees everywhere.
Trees everywhere.
Some of them broke off, and from then on they always squeaked every time the wind blew. And talk about schools closing. They never closed school that next morning after that hurricane.
They didn't. They just expected you to get there the best you could.
There was wires everywhere. Those
Uh-huh.
elm trees on Colby Street was terrible. Because I walked down there to Fred and Annie Gould's, where Dr. Fothergill lives. I went there for my lunch when I was in the first grade.
Yeah.
George Gould's grandmother
George Gould's grandmother.
gave me my lunch. She didn't think I ought to eat cold lunch, I guess. I don't know.
You walked to school, Graydon. You said about a
Yeah.
mile. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. I was fortunate I didn't.
We walked to school and back every day.
And
And then you, on top of that, Patty, I'll stick this in. We'd just get through school in June, and we'd walk to the Kittyville Church
Mm-hmm.
for Bible school.
for Bible school.
Bible school. Was
I walked to Bible school.
it 2 weeks?
Yeah.
That's what it usually was, 2 weeks.
I think we had
so.
2
Yeah.
weeks. Yeah.
And it was just kind of hot before.
Walking home was hot.
Now-
That's what I remember.
Who would be the minister of the church down there? Would it be from the Monadnock Church or the
Dr.
Methodist?
Quimby. Mr. Quimby.
When we was going, when I was a kid, it was the Methodist Quimby.
Quimby.
Yeah, the
Methodist
Methodist
Church.
And then, I don't know, it kind of
It was closed for a while.
was closed or something for a little while. Now, I don't know whether it was, well, Mary and Aunt Bean and some of the ladies around here. They had the ladies,
We had social workers.
it was the social workers, it was the
Mhm.
ladies part of the church. I can remember that part of it, but
They made quilts for needy families. That group of women made more quilts.
Now,
than
would you repeat some of the names?
well, there was
Grammy Lyons.
my grandmother was one of the older ones, and Jessie Cummins, and was
From the Cummins place.
up here on Cummins Place, and Madge Haynes, and Aunt Bean, and Mary Keyser, and Mary must have been one of the younger ones at the time.
Yeah.
And that would have been, what I can remember that far back, Helena, that was before Helena was, they didn't move out here until 48 or 49. So on. I don't know what the word down in Kittyville. I imagine Mrs. Washburn and Henrietta probably would have been in on it. And,
But they did a lot of
A lot of good things.
good things, yes.
and
That went
of course,
unnoticed.
you had the other Washburn. I don't know. There was George Washburn's family who lived up here. Now, who was? Well, probably the one that you would know, the connection to would be, I don't know, you remember when they still lived down on the Route 3 there, George and Gertrude Washburn?
No.
It would have been Jean Morin. It would have been David Morin's
Mm-hmm.
grandmother.
Yeah.
That still is around here. That family's all moved away too, you know, so like that, you know what I mean? And there's, I don't know, Patty, there's so many things you could fill in that,
But about the farming now, Daddy, I mean, the things that impressed me is the hurricane was one thing, but
Mhm.
I'm so glad I lived during World War II, too, to know how patriotic people were and how
Mhm.
different than they are today.
And you, well, like you kind of alluded to that. During that time, you were on rations
Yes, I mean, we remember the
and
sugar
people-
rations,
Yeah.
and you couldn't get tires,
gasoline,
you couldn't
you
get
couldn't-
gas, and you couldn't get butter, you couldn't get...
But in the meantime, not being able to do those things, you were able to save a little money.
oh yeah, I
Yes.
mean, of course,
Everybody did.
Farmers did particularly. Not,
You couldn't buy
everybody
machinery.
did as far as that goes. You couldn't buy machinery, but we
Or
were
new
we were
vehicles.
fortunate that My father got a lot of machinery just before the war broke out.
Grady's father had a tractor long before mine did.
We had a tractor and a small tractor, but it was usable for mowing and plowing
Some different than having horses.
and raking and stuff like that. But we got that just before.
Just before, so you were able to use it.
We were able to use it, but we didn't have a milk cooler till after the war. We always cooled the milk in the spring water and
Just ran
just
into
let it ran
through.
continuously into a
Mhm.
tub,
Cement.
well, a big cement tank actually, with cold water. Well, we had a rake, we had a hay loader, you know.
We never did.
We didn't.
Till we
We never
moved
did.
down to the Mohawk in 43. So, I mean, that's why I like it, because I can remember I'm actually tumbling hay and caulking hay and getting it in with the
I can remember
hay
doing it.
cloth. And I can remember
What is
doing it.
caulking hay, Grady?
Well,
If you know it's going to get wet.
well, it doesn't make too much difference. We always differentiated between if we were like a new seeded piece, heavy crop.
Mhm.
When it was mowed, we'd be a crew right behind the mowing machine, caulking it up, and a great big
Kind
caulk.
of piling it up?
And
It would
just
shed
pile-
the water
Yeah.
It would so it shed water
and heat out.
and it would actually heat out, make what they call it would make itself, and then you go around.
The next
Well,
day.
not the next day, practically. They'd leave them out more than that, but it depends on the weather. But a good day, you go around, shake them things all out again. I mean, and dry them out, and then
So tumbling was just getting them into piles.
Well-
You could put them onto a loader.
you talk with some of the old timers, and it was no matter what you were doing, you were caulking hay.
All right.
That tumbling is something that
No matter what you were doing, it was a lot of work. Right?
I don't understand. I can't today the way things move so much faster or something. I don't know how farmers had time to do what they did
It's amazing, isn't it?
years ago. I really don't.
And they were family oriented too.
Well, that's
Did
what,
things as a family.
that's what I was just going to say. Now, did they take Sundays off, or did they work 7 days a week? Well, I know you work 7 days a week, but farmers now...
No. My family, they didn't. My father wasn't a home. He would go to my grandmother's and to his mother or my mother's mother or
on a
on
Sunday.
On a
and
Sunday,
holidays.
yeah.
They had, some parts of the family that get so big that you'd have to divide off, to this and that one. But with your holidays and Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Took your blueberrying and everything like that.
Yeah, we always took one Sunday every year and went blueberrying up in Bear Rock there.
Bear Rock area, yeah, same place I
Well,
lived
same
there.
place.
And
Now, did your grandfather and parents, were they Grangers?
no.
They weren't.
No, my father joined at one time and he never kept his membership because it's in the records of over here in the Mohawk Grange. He joined about the same time Henrietta did.
If I remember correctly, Henrietta was a long-time member of the Grange, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Most of the people out this way joined, but a lot of them never kept their membership up, I would say. No,
Yeah,
at some
that's
time
right.
they were members of the Grange.
And when we went blueberrying, it was always the time that we went over South Hill, continued over South Hill, we went down Stewartstown Hall
He can remember his great grandmother,
to see my great grandmother.
one great. Yeah. I think I can remember my one great too, very
What-
very faintly, but it's
What
awful
was your great-grandmother's name, Grady?
Her maiden name was Holding,
faint. Susan Holden.
Susan Holding.
All the
Holden's
Holden.
of Coas. Oh, yeah. Oh, Barrowby from Groveton.
Yeah.
Sure.
He's the one that did it.
Yeah.
And his mother was.
Oh, I didn't know you related to those Holdens. And so that, was it Alice Holden from Groveton that was 100 and some
That
odd?
just barely died.
It just barely died.
Just barely died. Was that her name?
Huh?
Was her name Alice? No.
No, Anna.
Anya.
Anya.
Yes.
Anna.
Yes.
Anna.
Lives on a little side road there.
And it was, what did I figure, was she had 100 and some descendants.
Wow.
Just her and her
Just her.
husband. And that obituated her.
Now, her husband was related to your grandmother. Great-grandmother.
No, well, her husband was a first cousin to my grandfather on my mother's side.
Yep.
Now, Tommy's got the whole book.
Oh, yeah.
I fell in, and he goes down only in her family, the family he'd married into, this fellow did. If he'd gone all the branches, I mean,
He'd have gotten to you. He'd have gotten to you.
Yeah, I mean, he'd had a book. You know.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. 100 and some odd descendants, that's right.
He doesn't even mention your mother, but he mentions your grandfather.
There's a picture in here of my great grandmother. And this even takes in all the Colbys.
Oh, well. All the Colbys. What are we talking about?
Freeman Colby.
Freeman Colby
Yeah.
and Hat Colby.
Colby
Yeah,
used to be.
yeah. So they're related.
Freeman, old Freeman, Mrs. Colby's husband.
Mm-hmm.
His Well, you get this is all on my mother's side of the house, or whatever you want to call it. My grandmother Gould, she was a Gould. It would be her grandfather that's buried in the Titus Hill Cemetery.
Crandall.
Gould
Sybil.
and Sybil, and a lot of, I'd say a lot, there's 3 or 4 young children, you know, that died very young, and up to a teenager even. And
Then going on on the Gould side towards the Sillies.
that's my grandmother's mother's side. She was a Silly, and her father is Edwin Silly, is a Civil War veteran that's buried in the Colbrook Village Cemetery.
Colbrook Village Cemetery?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's as far back as I can go on those that I have really looked into. You know?
Didn't you tell me that he sent a letter home?
My cousin has got the letter that he wrote, a letter that he wrote to his wife when he was in the Civil War. And,
He was wounded in the Civil War.
yeah.
So he was in and out of the hospital a lot of the time.
And who's your cousin, Grady?
Susan Gosley is now. Well,
That has the letter.
She just has it. My grandmother had it, and then
Her daughter.
Susan's mother had it, and then I assume Susan's got it. So she's got to have it.
And does she live around here?
the Beach Falls, Pittsburgh.
Not very far away.
Hall Stream. Now, Susan Hall.
Did he write the letter himself? She said you don't think he wrote it himself.
This I do not know.
Yeah.
But very, I don't know, the handwriting back in those days, you know, it was done with I don't know, what kind of pen did you call them?
Quill.
No, quill, actually a feather.
Yeah. Cool pen.
Very cold sounding.
I mean,
No emotion. And she had 2 children at home that she.
yeah, my great grandmother was one of them.
Well,
But that's, I don't know that much more about it. Other than the fact that I have a cousin on that side of the family that did what would you call it? Not a genealogy exactly, but she got copies of all of his war records out of Washington, D.C.
Discharge papers.
All of his discharge papers and
when the grandmother was trying to get her widow's pension.
a widow's pension, and I mean, I forget now what it was now, but
Just $2.
we could look it up, but it was
Just
Just
$2
$2 a month.
I was
But you had to get all these affidavits and stuff, things from
Yeah.
the Cobra that knew him. Proof.
Well,
that
one
showed-
of them was actually. Oh, I looked at it. I won't.
Yeah.
'Cause I haven't picked it up.
Okay, well,
No.
Tommy, we'll change the subject here and go to school. Did you two meet each other in school? Or you've been dating all your lives? I kind of thought you had been.
No, not exactly, because I was going not till we got to high school.
Yeah.
I mean, and then we were sophomores. Not at all when we were freshmen.
Tell about your family.
Yeah.
Well, when I was in school, I was in the full ag program and FFA, and before I got done, I was the North Atlantic Regional Staff Arm of America in 1953.
And the Northeast region, so that would be 1 out of 4?
Yeah, there's 4 regions. There's 1 out of 4, and then they take, in the judging, they take 1 out of the 4 for the top one, the Staff Arm of America. Each year, and I assume they still do it. Yes, they still do it, and they've expanded into agro-business now, because they do the same thing.
Same thing.
Under an agro-business program.
That was quite an honor.
I got it on back that time ago.
And you used to drive to Kansas City?
Yeah, we drove. Well, the first time we went with 2 cars. It was only, I was a senior high school, and there was 2 cars loaded up. It was 11 all told, I think.
Can you name some of them?
I could name all of them probably. In our car was myself, not our car, it was Bobby Davis's car, and he's still around, and myself, Howard Rainville, and the one that was interchangeable. Well, we didn't move from one car to the other, but the other guys that didn't do any driving or map reading, they rode in the back seat. They'd go from our car to Mr. Grass's car and back and forth with Mike Kavanaugh and Richard Gorman and Philip Shallow and Robert Cleve and Robert Burrow, and he and Alan Hughes rode in Mr. Grass's car.
Mr. Grass was the Aggie instructor.
Yes.
Mr. Grass, the Aggie.
And then Bob Burrow went on to be the instructor, and your boys went to Kansas City with him. Is that correct? That's pretty neat. So you made several trips to Kansas City.
Well, just 3, Barry.
Well, that's several. And
When you were a senior.
When I was a senior, and then the very next year, 50 and 51 both, I went.
On a
And
bus.
in 51, we went with a whole busload, chartered bus.
is that when you
And,
started making the side trips? Touring
Oh,
around?
well, we did that the first year we
That
went.
First year you went.
There was a reason for that, but Mr. Grass had an uncle that lived in North Carolina. And that's why we came through back the southern route,
Coming home.
coming home. Because he had an uncle that lived there, and we stopped at one of the stops. But
They always continued it.
yeah, apparently they
Didn't
just
realize the
continued
reason.
to
Yeah, well, that's nice.
run basically that same route. I mean,
When Mr. Burrow?
yeah, but I went in 51 as an official state delegate, and again when I went in 53, I was a state delegate.
And was that a surprise to you, that award? Did you know you were going to get that?
Yes, really.
Yes and no. I mean, when they keep coming back for more information, other than the original application. You kind of get suspicious that they're screening or something, you know. But no, not outright. I didn't know until I landed in Kansas City. You know, I got the convention started Monday morning.
Got there Sunday night.
We got there Sunday night, but I didn't know it until I went to the convention hall that Monday morning for sure. But
And who was there that surprised you? I remember that story.
that surprised me.
His mother went with him.
My mother went with me,
Your
but
mother went
the
with
one
you?
that told me was Earl Little. He was the state advisor at that time.
Mhm.
He's also graduated from Coal Academy.
Oh. Well, your mother went with you. That must have made you a little suspicious.
Yeah.
And she'd take off too.
Did you drive down with even the boys? Or?
Yeah. Well, just myself and my mother and Richard.
Your
Peanut.
brother? Oh, Richard and Peanut.
Peanut
Peanut
went with him.
Well, that was nice.
That time, I asked him to go with me to help God.
Mhm.
That's all.
And you didn't go, Eleanor?
I
What?
flew out later.
She come out later.
That must have been a total surprise.
Yeah, sort of. She didn't even mention it.
You weren't going to go, and then you got thinking about it? Or?
Yeah.
Of course, if she'd insisted on going from the beginning, I would really been suspicious. But that's why she didn't.
Because I knew about it.
Let's see, she knew about it.
And his mother knew about it.
You were in college.
I was doing my practice teaching in Grafton. So it was my first semester, my senior year.
The problem is, that's quite a highlight of my younger years.
I would think that would be. That's something to be really proud of. And FFA, that's an all, is that still an all male organization?
No.
It isn't.
It was at that time, Patty, and both those times that I was there was only 1 year in between, but I was a delegate. It always came up. That was one of the things that was a continuous
Till I got in there.
to let
And
us.
they always turned it down, right?
Yeah, the delegate was voted down.
But now that's no longer true.
No,
That's what changed.
they have a lot of.
Can you imagine letting CA kids today drive to Kansas City? They don't even let them drive to the balls. What about class trips? Did you go on any class trips?
Oh yeah, I went on a senior class trip.
Senior class trip. Now, did they go by bus or did you take your own?
Take your own car.
Look at that.
Brand new car.
I had a brand new car.
His father bought him.
As a matter of fact, most of them did. I can't remember exactly the cars, but the chaperones we had was Mabel Sims and Walter Collins.
So the chaperones didn't do the driving then?
No.
Mabel
Kids did.
rode with me, and Walter, I don't know what car he did ride in. I really can't remember, but
We'd be fired if we had to let the kids drive to New York City today, wouldn't we?
And Washington?
we
And they went to
New York City on the first day and stayed overnight, and then got up next morning and went to Washington D.C. and spent, I don't know, when we spent 2 or 3
4
days.
days.
Did you do the
3
same
days.
thing, Ellen?
Yep.
Just the year before.
Did you drive?
No, my mother did.
Your mother did.
She took the car.
She took the car. Well, she's got courage. Drove you to Washington or just New
That's
York?
what Marcel Day always said. She had courage.
Did she go with you, myself there?
She was in our car.
She was in your car?
Yeah.
Well, that's neat. Yeah.
And so,
Well, that's good. And
the,
you didn't think of anything more? I don't want to hurry there. Did you think anything more about school and dating and whatever's that we haven't covered?
well, we used to cover all the dances with school dances, or, I mean, it's unbelievable. No wonder kids don't find anything to do nowadays. I mean, but they don't get into it like we used to, I don't think either.
I always thought you learned to dance at the Grange, but that wasn't true then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically, yeah. I mean, yeah. Because they had a dance there in Colbert Grange Hall every Saturday night. I used to go there when my father and
When he
mother
was
went.
real little.
When I was-
Now, where was the Colbert Grange home?
Behind the stores. By
By Hebert's, right
By
by the Hebert's, that
old
all that Nugent
building.
owns.
Oh, where Alice Johnsrow used to live?
beyond.
Beyond.
When you're walking that old road.
That road, that
Oh, to
cross
the
road.
post
To the
office?
post
Yeah,
office.
right
It's
behind
that
the
old
post office.
building.
Did you belong to the Colbert Grange?
I did.
You did, when you
Right.
were young,
I joined when I was 14.
14.
But Grady didn't, because see, he lived out here, so his jurisdiction was Mohawk.
So he couldn't join the Colbert
Colbert
Grange.
Grange. He joined out here in
Just before we were married, that
53, probably.
54,
54.
54, I think it was 54, early 54. sometime. That's the way it was. I mean, if you, wherever you lived, they draw the boundary lines and you,
That's the Grange you had to belong
Now,
to.
where would the Factory Village people go?
Well, it was about in there somewhere. I think it was about by our house. Or by Gordy's there. Gordy belonged to Cobra.
Colbert Grange, but
Gaudy Whitehill.
Whitehill.
Jimmy Shallow did too, so he lived, at that time they lived
Up in the little house.
in the little house, the old house there.
But I bet it was right at Carlton Hill or so there. That it was the boundary line.
I think so.
But then you got into the Columbia jurisdiction, probably. And then you got the top of Carlton Hill.
Yep, he was in, well, almost. It was Columbia Town lines right there, not too far.
Now, what year did you two get married? Right after you finished your student teaching, Eleanor?
54.
54. And did you get married at the farm?
Yeah.
At the South Chickapaw?
Yeah.
Oh.
Double wedding with Jean's son. Outdoors.
Outdoor wedding.
Right on the lawn.
You have the reception right there, too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was going to tell about Mama's teaching. That is
Yes.
there, is it?
No, we would like that.
She taught in a lot of different schools. And she came here. She was born and brought up in Rochester. Then she went to Keene Normal School. Then she taught in Sunapee a little while, maybe a year or two, or 1 year at least. And then she came to Cobra, taught in the 7th grade in elementary, but the minute she got married, she had to teach outside. And
You can't, wait a minute now. You can teach in town,
if you're not married, or
but
could
if you're
then,
married, you can teach out of town,
Yeah.
but not in town.
in the rural schools. Don't ask me why. It was 2 different school districts, too. I mean, it was a Colbert Special, and this was Colbert Town, outside. But she taught up to church in Columbia for quite a while. She taught at Bear Rock up Stewartstown. That school isn't even there now. And she taught at Factory Village and Mohawk. Those are the ones that I remember her teaching at. Those 4 different schools. But she taught most of the time when I was little. When Jean was born, and for a few years she didn't. But then, right then is when she went back to teaching.
But she taught quite a while then.
I have no idea how many years in all.
On the first side of the tape, we were talking about the flood, and I thought you had said that
Yeah,
she was teaching,
she was
but it's
teaching.
not on the tape there, so would you like
She
to?
was teaching at church. They were living out here in East Colebrook. First year they were married? Well, the first winter. No, it'd be the second winter, I think. I don't know. They were married in November.
Oh, the flood, that's what it was, yeah.
And then what year was the flood?
29.
29. And they were married in 27, so it was the second winter. They were living out here in East Colebrook at my great-grandparents, just one great. Because her husband had died, so she was left there alone.
And where's that on? Is that where Roland Contwile is now?
No. Go up into East Colebrook, beyond Helen Hooks, as you go up that next hill, right there on the left.
Right on top of that hill.
That's where Helen and Albert Corbett lived. And he had his own creamery, and he had the barn isn't there, the creamery isn't there, the house is about
Been picked up.
It's been gutted on the inside, but structurally on the outside is pretty near the same.
It's the same shape, it's the same
We
building.
used to have a shed there.
Is that right on the corner of a road that goes up to the line? No.
Yes, up to Jerry Grant's.
Yeah.
Just beyond that.
Yeah.
House. Yeah. I think this house has siding on it now or
Yeah.
something.
I thought Bob Burrow owned that at one time, did he?
No,
Not to
no.
my knowledge.
Okay. I thought I went up in that field once for some tractor Aggie tryouts or something.
That would have been way up further.
Way up further.
It's back.
Beyond
Okay,
Four
I'm going
Corners.
too far then. Okay.
You aren't further enough up in
I'm
Beach
not further
Cobra.
enough up. Okay. All right.
But that's when she was teaching at
Mhm.
church, and I remember her saying that she came home. Must be they got word that the flood or that the dam had gone out, because I can remember them telling that they went down on the hill there. That's just where you just walk East Corporate there and watch the water come down through. I don't know, 5, 6 o'clock at night.
So she got home from school before the.
Before it, yeah, before that bridge collapsed. She said it folded up just like a sandwich.
Which road was that now? Cooper
Fountain Hill.
Fountain Hill Bridge. Yeah. So church school, is that the one up in the top of Fountain Hill and you kind of turn left? It's kind of Fish Pond there and
Yeah, it's beyond the
Titus Hill
Fish
Road.
Pond turn.
Just
Yeah,
beyond on that corner.
just beyond on that
There's an
corner.
old schoolhouse there
Yeah.
that someone uses
That's
for
true.
camp. Is that
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. So she had some, and then wasn't she also active in the church with your father
Yeah,
and other things? Did she?
Daddy was flatman. I looked that up this morning. From 1937 to 49,
Quite a while.
and all the time I was small, I remember him going to Slapman's meeting every Monday night. Then they were active in Grange. Mama was a state officer in Grange.
In Grange, they were active.
And of course, they were both active in church. Daddy was very active in all his Farm Bureau and all of his cooperative, milk cooperatives.
Well, they must have been in the Pomona too.
Grange. Yeah, a little, but she was master of the Cobra Grange for a while, and then she was a state officer.
So they were both very active.
Yeah, she was more than Daddy was probably in Grange. But I mean, my grandparents were too, and my great-grandparents were Grange members. Albert and Helen were out here in Mohawk, and Burton and Alice and
It was.
were Cobra.
Albert and Helen were
Charter members of the Mohawk Grange.
Of the Mohawk Grange.
And that would be my great-grandparents.
Now, did your parents start the Agway store in their house, or was that Jean and Sonny that did that? It's kind of a collaboration.
Oh,
Well,
Daddy
that
and
was-
Mama did first.
They did.
No, they didn't start. Well, they had a dealership there, but they didn't have any store.
They didn't have a store until Jean and Sonny were there.
No, until the partnership.
Yeah.
They were always Eastern States and Agway Green representatives, what they
Yeah.
call them.
That's how I met your mother, I think, through there.
Oh.
And Roland made her a picture frame once when we first moved there. But you didn't know that.
No.
That's how I got to see that house, actually. I think I went on a tour during the bicentennial.
Yeah, they had a tour. We've got pictures that Paul Nugent took of the different things in that house. Some of the Dutch ovens, and there were shutters on. One room
that's
had
good
wooden
that you have
shutters.
those pictures. Does it kind of bother you to go by there today?
No, it doesn't bother me in the least.
It doesn't? Family's not there, so it's not part of your...
My happier years were on Titus Hill when I lived on
They were.
Titus Hill.
Well, I think all of us remember our real way back.
When we were real
Right.
small, I think that's what you remember more.
Right.
When you do your teenage, you start doing your own things then.
Yeah. Now, Grady, have you... This home that we're sitting in right now, you've been in for many, many years. Is that correct? I think you did.
45.
1945.
Moved here, and when you married Eleanor, you just brought her home for dinner?
Mother moved out.
Where did your mother go?
The village. Into an apartment.
Well, yeah, but the first summer we was married, she worked for Mrs. Hale over to
Balsam.
Balsam.
And then she went to the village
Then
that fall.
that fall, she moved to an apartment in the village.
And did you tell me she came back to visit on weekends?
Every single weekend.
One weekend here.
And one weekend up to Albany and Janice's.
Well, that was nice. And did you work in town? Did you tell me
Yeah,
that?
she worked for
Dr. Poirier.
Dr. Poirier for
Years and years and years.
Babysitting or housework or?
Both.
housework,
the
doing
above.
office,
Housework, but
cleaning, office, doing all the cleaning in his
Office.
office and everything. Waiting
In the house.
in
But
the
she took
house.
care of the kids too, or
Yeah, a lot
if
of
Florence
time.
wasn't there or something. She went to Florida with them. That was just a babysat.
Yeah.
And then she came back here weekends and took turns visiting family.
Oh.
That was nice because gave the kids a chance to.
They really got to know their grandmother very, very much. I think that's all.
I think that is. I think we've probably covered just about everything.
Well,
Unless you can think of something, did you?
well, there's so many other details, but you can't get into too many details.
No.
That is, you know,
But it's kind of nice to preserve a
Yeah.
little bit of the past.
just a little bit of stitches here and there, you know.
Look at the stones.
I thought that was full of horses and cattle.
Oh no.
But a snowmobile. What do you call that? An enclosed snowmobile thing just went by, and I thought it was a cattle thing. Well, I think that we're done again. We'll turn this off. We're working. We're all set. I'm just going to let you continue. All right, I just asked if you could name Jed's 7 children.
7 of them. There's
Larry.
Larry. She married White Hills, first husband. And then his Uncle Archie, he was the second one in the family, which is Elsa and Richard's father. And then my father was the third one,
Oh, he's
Albion.
cute.
Albion. And then there was 3 girls. Aunt Irvina,
Greenville.
Mm-hmm.
Aunt Marguerite, which lives in Toronto,
Canada.
has all the married life lived out. Then Aunt Lila, Farrington.
Mm-hmm.
Then Uncle Earl, he was the baby in the family.
They had another one. That
They had another one that died at birth, I think.
Meredith.
So he had quite a family.
And this picture that I have here was taken up here where Steve Cross lived, where the Cross's family lived, were the last ones that lived there before it was subdivided, which was a balsam farm at that time.
It was. Did he work there?
Yeah, he worked on that one. That's why they lived at that time. But he moved every time he turned around anyway, I guess, pretty much. And my father used to tell a story about one time my grandfather decided he was going to move to Groveton, work in the mill. That was when they were probably 8, 9, actually my father was probably 8, 9, 10 years old. Of course, they were closest together. And so, Grandpa packed up and they loaded the stuff and they went to Groveton. But my father and Archie had to lead the family cow down.
Walking?
Walking.
Wow.
They led the family cow. And by the time they got to Groveton with the cow, Grandpa had decided to move back.
You're right, he did move a lot. So they had to turn around and walk the family cow back?
I assume so. I know.
That's good.
I know my father was good that way. He used to tell us a lot of different stories about.
So many things that my grandmother used to tell me that I thought, well, that's just foolishness. I don't need to remember that. Now I wish she was here so I could say, when did this take place? Who was this? And who was
Yeah.
that?
Isn't that the truth? Can you give us just a little brief, just tell us briefly about your children and then I'll let you off the hook.
We had 3 children. Eldona, named after her grandfather, and Daddy wouldn't let my mother name me Eldona. He didn't want anything to do with that, but he was very proud to have Eldona named after him, I think. Her middle name is Lee, which was Grady's father's middle name. So she was named after her grandfather's. She was born in 1955. And she went 1 year to Boston to New England Baptist. for nursing, decided that wasn't for her, and came back and went to Berlin Tech for 2 years in accounting and did the outstanding. And married Clint Brooks, and they have 3 children.
They lived in Concord.
They lived in Concord for
10 years?
10 years.
I don't know.
I don't know. Matthew is now at New England College in Biddeford, majoring in marine biology. Aaron is a sophomore in Cobra Academy, and Ascendant which is a name they got off from a cemetery grave on the Brookside down Maine. Her name is Ascendant Joy.
You have to spell that for me, Eleanor.
Asenath.
Okay, thank you.
She will be 5 right off here, January 14th. So we have one that's 19. Eldon has one that's 19 and one that's almost 5. Our second one was Bruce. He was born in 57. Did very well all through school. Was valedictorian of his class. Went to VTC, Vermont Technical College, for 2 years. Got an associate degree in dairy management.
Yep.
Came back and went into partnership with his father and mother. And then 7 or 8 years ago took the farm over himself. Married Stephanie Wenzel, which was a former student of mine. Went on to be a business teacher. She teaches in Canaan, Vermont, and they have 4 children. Stephen is a 8th grader. Jennifer is a 6th grader. Kimberly is a 4th grader, and Dana is a 1st grader. And then our third one was Brent, was born in 1959. Did very well all through school, very independent, very community-minded. Went to Berlin Tech and has worked for Tillotson Healthcare ever since in different jobs. Now he is in charge of the samples, sending samples.
Samples for sales.
Sales representatives. He's in charge of. And he is very, very active in the church.
So you should be proud of all 3 children.
Very proud.
Lucky to have them all still in Cobra.
Still in Cobra.
And your daughter-in-law is pretty much followed in your footsteps. Both business teachers, both married to farmers, both belong to Eastern Star, am I correct?
Yes.
And both members of the Nadnut Community Church.
She has a voice, which I don't have.
Well, Pat Company right there.
So we're different.
Now, you said Bruce took over the farm, but I know better that you 2 are both still working on the farm.
Oh, yeah.
I've been by here and seen you with your boots on.
We probably will never stop until he sells, so.
Well,
I don't know.
you don't know that.
Physically, I don't know.
You don't have any retirement plans immediately.
Oh,
we
yeah.
both like to go to Montana. I have a cousin in Montana. We would really like to go to Montana.
Then you should
Grady
be,
says he even might go to Florida for a week or 10 days.
well, you better be doing that, you know.
And the other cousin lives in Florida. The other
My
one
favorite one lives in Florida, so.
her age. Got a home in Florida. Ruth's got a home in Florida.
My best friend.
Ruth
Brainerd
from Cobra.
was until she moved to Walpole.
So that sounds to me like a good idea. Montana, especially.
They have a new home in Montana. They've lived out west all their most of their life.
In the Rockies, right? They go.
Idaho and now Montana. And he has a daughter that lives in Montana, which is a writer, author.
Journalist.
You'd like to see that country, I would think, Grady.
Yeah, I always thought, I remember when I was in school, if I ever went anywhere, I'd like to go to Idaho. Now why, I don't know.
Idaho potatoes?
I don't know. No.
Well, you can do that on your way to Montana.
There's no reason to.
Well, I think I don't know if we've covered everything.
No.
I think you people have a lot
of.
Enough. Well, we both love history.
Well, that's good. We could always update this.
Both love history.
It sounds like you have some interesting relatives. I knew this would be good to do. See. And I knew I wouldn't have to say too much. Didn't I do well for me?
Oh, the other thing I was real active in when I was in school was Girl Scouts.
Scouts?
That was my favorite thing.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? You remember the leader? Or?
Oh yes, I had Mrs. McLean. I
Mrs.
never had
McLean,
her.
Ruth
I
McLean?
never had her as a teacher, but I had her as a scout leader
No, I
all my
never knew that.
5 years. She was a very special lady.
Well, there. Did you go camping and things, or was it just?
Just the weekly meetings.
Mm-hmm.
You joined when you were 10. I stayed in an extra year to get my first class badge. Scouting was very. I went to camp one year. There was a scout.
Was that in Ossipee?
No. My sister never belonged to Scouts. I don't think Dee never belonged to Scouts, but she went to Camp Hopkins in Ossipee.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, for 2-3 years. She loved Camp Hopkins. No, the one Ruth and I went to was somewhere in Maine, down near Auburn, down near Mechanic Falls, somewhere in the area. I don't even remember the name of the place.
She went with you.
Yeah. We must have been in the 8th grade.
Who were some of the other Girl Scouts? Can you remember?
Oh, I've got 2 pictures that I'd like to put in Sentinel sometime.
Oh, well, that you ought to do that.
Everybody was in it. Everybody, all Scouts.
Something to do.
Yeah,
It was kind of nice. I was a Girl Scout. Well, okay, I'm going to let you off the hook now. I think you've done a very good job, and I've enjoyed it. And if you think of anything more, you just tell me, and I'll come running back.
Oh, you will. I'll turn the thing off.
All right, I'll do that.